I mean, like this was intended to be a kind of provocative presentation to try to merge completely different things. The idea of data repositories that are used by communities with libraries which are used by different communities. And then instead you can merge them and try to work to have a single idea of a repository that you can use in different ways according to the needs. Oh, yes, Evelyn.
Yeah, maybe one question.
Sorry. Can you? No, because we are streaming, so otherwise people will not hear you.
Yeah, maybe one question concerning the output of how you combine the output. Is this output, let's say, do you somehow type it when you say it's data, or it's even publications in journals, it's even mistakes probably, or presentation, something like that that you have, let's say, that? Where is it done? Yeah, or do you use what is in ORCID and then?
No. So you are seeing that.
Yeah.
Let me go back to one of the slides I presented. So it's always the concept of research product. When you upload something, you can say this is related. So the concept of reference. So the data analysis is related to the data sets. You can see that the data sets or the DOIs are completely different, and even the physical locations of the different objects. That data set for the Alice experiment is on UDAT somewhere. The virtual machine is on another repository, and the analysis is on the OER, on the Sci-GaIA OER repository. These three things are a single digital research product. So when you upload, Carla showed you that you can upload, you can say the authors, but you can say the DOIs, and you can even reference. So if you do that by hand, fine. But since you can do that using APIs, you can do very complicated things very easily using the APIs. So you can have an interface. People can play with the interface at some point when the data are okay. I mean, you click a button and you fill this kind of thing. And this will stay forever. Of course, you can even publish on the open access repository an object that points visitors to a science gateway where they can rerun the analysis. That's the idea of that particular object over there, or this particular object. Here we have the DOI collection, so we have different things. We have the graphical visualization, 5 data sets, 1 virtual machine. This virtual machine has been deployed on the EGI Fed Cloud and is started on demand using a science gateway. So you have an application on a science gateway, you click a button, this virtual machine is started on the EGI Fed, on one of the sites of the EGI Fed Cloud. These data sets are retrieved and the analysis starts. At the end, as I said here, at the end, you make the analysis, you publish a new paper, you can upload the new paper on the open access repository and cite all the others as references. So you are just adding +1 in the research product. So your research product will increase. So you can even have an even more general concept. Instead of research product, you can have domain products of a specific domain, of a specific community. And then using DOIs, using authors' DOIs, you can use the semantic web technologies to connect things. So you can not only search on open access repositories using APIs, not only searching using OAI PMH APIs, but you can search using Sparkle endpoints, using linked data. So this will make data federation much easier. All the machinery is there, and in many cases people are reinventing the wheel. All the machinery is there. So, I mean, we are trying to look for complicated federations. I mean, linked data is one federation of data. So you define the semantic connections, and then you can easily triplify the concept and use Sparkle endpoints to query for the data. Okay. So I think that we can break for 15 minutes to stretch our legs and take water, coffee, and so on. And we come back, and before lunch, we will go to the first part of the One Data talks. Then we break for lunch, and then the second part of One Data. Okay? So 15 minutes break. Vending machines downstairs in the big lobby.
Bellissimo. Vai, è standard. Sì, sì, sì. Vai, vai, vai. Sì, certo. Devi fare sempre fare vedere.
Vuoi prendere dell'acqua? Prendere le chiavi così. Sai che c'è?
I spoke to the guy in Tanzania who spoke to take care of the people. When it's working, you can go there. That's the place where you should really go. Power too. Our great star.
Ti è rimasta malissimo?
L'ha rifatto vedere.
No, scusa, ma risposto.
Ma va, prendere l'acqua.
Is it One Data?
No. No, I'm not the one. Are you looking for one?
Yes. Someone who knows about One Data because I have the profile and there's some errors.
Yes, but that should appear, but I don't know who they are. So,
Okay,
I
so
can
just-
that. We have to go to the
Almost the same street with the Piazza Fresco.
For you, it's very.
Yeah, I checked. What time were you there, sir?
At 8:30 when they open.
She was long already.
Yes.
This guy is checking now. I'm sure you didn't go to the venue.
No, io sono abituata, figurati oggi sono uno scalino. Io sono letto a voi. E il gatto vicino. Poi
No, è una zanzara. No, ma sei sì.
no, a me me l'ammazza. Tu così.
Non si vedeva, spegneva lui.
Sì.
però però le portate
Ne prendete anche quello del gelato?
multiculturale, quelli così, non sapevo, tipico siciliano.
Quelli che capiscono loro, ne sanno loro. Ho visto io. Esportiamo anche i mestieri.
Sì, perché molti che comunque il lavoro
Il bianco, ma guarda, non lo so.
c'è questo il tirocinio all'ufficio dei mirati, quindi generazione e poi disperato perché era il fondo sociale quando io in medico non ci sono messa ma che poteva vedere le nonne invece siccome era proprio settoriale era in mediazione
Poi bene, penso che peggiore il giorno.
no, io sono bellissimo perché devo dire che inizialmente si è così faccio diciamo che mi metto l'attività quindi tu stai l'attività e poi la
Gli amici di Colonia, per un video andato a vivere a Verona.
sì, ma ci provano, però poi alla fine posso dire che sono molto più aperti rispetto per esempio ai toscani, l'ho visto anche in Toscana. Sembrano tutti quanti, forza, un bicchiere di vino, sì, ma poi non sono.
Dipende dalla città.
Ma quindi sono ancora più.
Per esempio Firenze sono molto.
Forse perché sono un po' più abituati, sono stata.
Firenze odia anche quelle che del paese accanto, quindi.
Però dovrebbero essere più abituati. Io ho visto che
Sono molto più aperti, c'è una guida pornesi.
i pisani pure per
Pisani,
certo perché le
invece
università.
Firenze sono più.
Io non ci ho visto, sono stata 2 volte, quindi non posso parlare, io ti posso dire per Lucca. Una chiusura, ma poi tra l'altro diciamo la disabilità anche. Poi sono invece, cioè, ragazzi, allora io dico, meglio bene, cioè, proprio andrebbe assolutamente, però meglio bene dico comunque, infatti la battuta, in faccia, i nomi del sud, i termini del sud, i fondi del sud. Siccome io ero un pochettino da piccola scusi, ma l'etimologia della Verona è quello che tu capo con la storia, che tu devi andare a un diretto, cioè faccio male le frasi non delle note, che abbiamo vincolato, tu devi andare sotto, vedi dalle ville che erano le nostre fattorie, lavoravamo tutti quanti la terra fuori, ok? Ho visto un po' di rimasto, ma io non è che io ho risposto, io ho parlato di etimologia, non è che era mia mamma mi scherziava, appena vanno vigisti, mi lanciavano di fare
Brutto, perché fai cosa fai?
ma no, perché siccome ho trovato un modo comunque carino di dirlo,
Che non ha accettato.
che però non ha accettato, cioè io pensavo di dire una cosa comunque che era rilevante.
Non è offeso perché era anche una culturale.
Sì, perché non ha, no, perché il dialetto non è che lo poteva giustamente sapere dell'etimologia, delle famiglie, cioè non la utilizzato impropriamente. E quindi ho avuto questa possibilità di constatare da lei è nata proprio la mia passione per il multiculturalismo, perché visto che proprio questa frattura sociale c'è all'interno della via stessa. E usa la globalizzazione.
Come fai? Comunque c'è un background sociale,
Con la
culturale.
cultura si combatte.
Devi partire da quello.
Sì, ma
Negli ultimi 20 anni abbiamo perso la cultura.
comunque ora è un processo in atto di scolarizzazione che comunque perché se prima arriva una persona che non cioè sono fare il ancora non lo di studio perché poi è anche la prima comunità avere una cultura però è anche bello che comunque nessuno si associa al fatto di non aver studiato per abbandonare totalmente quello che è la ricerca andarsi a controllare qualcosa che riuscisce su internet totalmente quindi tu non trovare ma io chiedo a me che no c'è come proprio una cosa da commettere ma anche perché
Considera che tutte quelle persone che ancora cioè mio nonno quando era in vita, cioè quando c'era lui stavano le porte per spiegare l'integrazione razziale. Comunque c'è una generazione che tutt'oggi è cresciuta fascista e vista bene.
parliamo di storia bene cioè distante senza pensare che poi quello ha proprio delle conseguenze a lungo termine che oggi non paghiamo questo mancava dell'elasticità mentale
Quando c'era lui ci sono bene.
sì, come negli anni 90 che loro stavano bene tipo i nostri genitori e poi oggi mi dicono com'è possibile mia mamma che viene dal mondo pubblico e dice ma com'è possibile che non escono le cose perché parliamo le canzoni tipo quello che è successo tra i 18 anni e 90 quindi no comunque io spero che non mi dico i miei figli e per rimanere questa cultura
Poi ci sono le persone.
comunque per tornare di veloce perché credo che ci stanno delle quantità fuori da diverse
Already hands are one complex inside
Okay. So we can take this out. You can sit anywhere, but you need to take your bench and you can sign. But you can take your time.
Ogni interfaccia può presentare in questo modo e con una foto media, con una notizianza anch'io, quindi la possibilità di lavorare in non si può fare niente, le note sono completamente se inizia
I would say 1 hour.
When you get there, you put it as late
By the way, if you present slides, we will leave the camera here and the slides will be merged together. If you need to do something live on a computer, tell us because we need to move that camera behind the as we did.
It will be divided in parts, much like your.
Yeah, but tell us when you should, because we need a couple of minutes to move that camera there. Okay? Let us know when you are. So, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, can you take your seats? Va bene, andiamo qua. Carla, il tuo computer è qua.
Ah, ok. Sto vedendo il
So I guess I should put this.
Yes, you should wear this. Federica,
Sì.
devi mettere il microfono, giusto?
Sì.
Video? C'è il zaino. Okay, ready?
Ready. Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Konrad Zemek. I'm joined here by my colleague Krzysztof Czepla. We are both employees of ACC Academic Computer Center Cyfronet, which is a part of AGA University of Science and Technology in Poland, Krakow. And we are developers part of the development team of the One Data platform, which is what the presentation will be on. So a short agenda. I will first introduce the One Data with its core concepts for those of you unfamiliar with the platform. Then I'll briefly describe the internal architecture, the more interesting parts of it. We'll proceed to the live demo conducted by Krzysztof, which will include multiple parts, like spinning up the instances with example scenarios for distributed access, sharing files between users and data centers, how to use our Fuse client, and how to access and manipulate data through CDMI and REST interfaces. I will then showcase One Data in Human Brain project, how it's used with its image viewer application. Shortly talk about our plans for the near future with One Data, open data platform in One Data. Then there will be a time for a hands-on demo where you, the audience, will log in to One Data and share your files with us. Then we'll conclude the presentation with a summary. So, for the introduction. What are the problems that One Data wants to solve? So, the first core problem was that storage technologies are very heterogeneous. We have multiple interfaces for different storages. For example, we have the standard POSIX interface, which you use Linux commands to interface with. And then we may have something like Hadoop FS, which you need to use a special command line tool to use. The storages can be slow, like tape-based archive storage, or very fast, like RAM-backed scratch storages for fast computation. So the first version of One Data aimed to unify the access to those different kinds of data storages by providing a common interface with storage helpers underlying the system that can access all of these different storage types. The very important part of the first version of One Data was high throughput processing. So whenever a storage allowed you to use it in a very fast manner, as in parallel storages like Gluster, we wanted to introduce as little overhead as possible. And I will shortly talk about this in a moment, how we achieved that. So when we solved that problem with One Data 1.0, we found ourselves in a unique position where the thing we did made sense on a bigger scale. So not only we would unify access to different storages inside a single data center, we would unify access to storages on multiple data centers. So that's how One Data 2.0 began to be developed. For unified data to multiple data centers, we had to implement a high throughput transfer system so that when you try to access your data from data center A, but your data actually is stored in data center B, it will be transferred transparently to you and served to you as fast as possible. A big problem that also has to be solved is replica management. And there are multiple parts of this. One is, of course, manual replication, where you tell the system that I want this file to be present on provider A, where provider is a data center A and data center B. But there's also an automated type of replication where the file might be provisioned for you. So when you use your files on data center A and they are physically on data center B, the files are replicated to you. There's also a type of replica management based by policy. So, for example, for archivization purposes or for data processing purposes. So your files may be currently on this slower tape-backed archive storage, but you need it to be on fast RAM-based storage. So the policy would detect that you want to do data processing on your data and move your files to this fast storage accessible to your data processing software. Finally, there's a case of sharing. So we've seen on previous presentations that sharing data is still a problem for the scientific communities. We come up with new ways to share, like open access repositories. So OneData enables sharing inside OneData via team sharing, where you all have access to a single space, cross-community data sharing, where various groups of scientists have access to a single data set. And finally, instant ad hoc data sharing, where it works pretty much like Dropbox or Azure or any cloud-based file provider would work, where you generate a link to your data and share it through instant messaging, for example. So shortly about the OneData team, briefly. We are currently composed of about 20 people, and the OneData team is grouped into developers, which we represent, the documentation team, documentation and support team, and testing team. The platform is developed for about, well, more than 3 years. So during this time, we've released version 1.0 and 2.0, in which we greatly increased the scope of the project, and both versions were deployed to Cyfronet and Pellegrit resources. We are located in Krakow, Poland. As I mentioned, Cyfronet is a part of AGH University of Science and Technology, which is in Krakow, Poland. And our project is currently supported by Cyfronet, Pellegrit, which is an organization that Cyfronet is a part of, Indigo Data Cloud, and EGI Engage, under which we develop many features. So, what's the big picture of OneData? The core element of OneData systems are providers. So each of these red circles show us a provider in the word, one word. Provider may support spaces. Spaces are a logical grouping of users' files, which will be described in a later slide. But what's important here is that multiple providers can support users' files, and not only in a manner where file A resides on provider A and file B resides on provider B, but also where a file is replicated over both of the A and B providers and can be fetched from provider A or provider B whenever it's faster to do so. Right? So the spaces concept. The concept of spaces is the most important concept in OneData. So as I just mentioned, spaces are logical groupings of files. Spaces can belong to multiple users and multiple user groups. And also, spaces can be supported by multiple providers. And just as I said, files can be stored on all of the providers or on just one of the providers or on any subset of providers that support the space. Providers set a quota for each space that won't be overreached. And so, moving on. Each space exposes a metadata changes feed. The changes feed can be aggregated and used by third-party tools. For example, we could set up a Twitter feed that would take new changes on a space and publish it to a Twitter account. So we could see that user A just uploaded a new file, user B just changed the file. It's the kind of aggregation the kind of aggregation and processing that is enabled by this changes feed is important for the metadata, creating metadata indexes, because that's the only feed that we expose for the space. So when you want to, on the fly, aggregate how many files and what type of files one data space has, you will listen to this changes feed, and update your metadata as the metadata is updated on the actual one data system. Architecture. So for a high-level architecture of one data system, we have one providers, which I mentioned before. One providers are coordinated by one zone. One zone serves to hold users' data like logins or his OpenID Connect providers or his spaces that he belongs to or the groups that he belongs to. And of course, what providers support what spaces. The one zone then coordinates transfers and interaction between providers by authenticating the providers that want to talk with each other and authorizing access by checking whether provider A has access to the space that he wants to access. Then the one provider exposes multiple interfaces, which we will discuss in a moment, but the most important for us at this time are the Fuse client, which allows you to mount your one data files wherever they are, on whatever data centers they are in local machine, so we can access them via POSIX interface like you would normal files. And then we have the HTTP GUI, which is very similar to what Dropbox provides, for instance, and REST interface and CDMI interface for manipulating your data and performing certain operations like adding metadata or forcing a replication on our system. So we've introduced a new concept called one word, where the zones that are coordinating the providers may be deployed in multiple places. We treat zones as a federation level construct, but then zones may talk with each other to allow providers between zones to communicate and provide data to users, so that a user can be logged to one federation and fetch his data from another federation. And zones from these different federations have to talk with each other and determine whether the access is possible and how best to perform this access. What providers, what nodes of providers to expose to the other zone so that user data can be fetched. For the internal architecture. So the one zone has a GUI for the users. As I mentioned before, the one zone handles users' data. So provider doesn't really know about the users. Provider knows what spaces he supports. The user logs into one zone. He logs through an SAML protocol, which is currently in preparation, or OpenID Connect. We currently support providers such as Google, Facebook, Dropbox, GitHub, Pelgrid, and the list of providers can be easily extended with new ones. The other interfaces provided by OneZone are REST APIs, and in preparation we have the Open Archives Initiative protocol for metadata harvesting for the open data integration, which I will talk about in the last part of the presentation. So while the entry GUI is used by users to log in the one data system, the REST APIs are mostly used by the one provider. So one provider uses the APIs to fetch data about users logged into the system that currently uses space supported by the provider. And also, it fetches data about spaces that it supports and other providers that supports that very spaces to facilitate replication of data and communication between providers needed to provide all of users' data to him when he's logged in. The one provider is the actual entity that performs storage access. We currently have a variety of storage helpers which interface with the storages. we have a simple POSIX storage helper. We have a Ceph storage implementation. We have S3, and we've just implemented a Swift helper, which we're currently testing. So spaces can be supported by the provider using any of these storage types. So a provider can say that he supports a space with 2 GB of POSIX storage, of POSIX-backed storage, where he sets that the POSIX storage is accessed under a certain path in the file system. But he can also say that the space is supported by an S3 backed storage, where the credentials are the following, and you can only store, the space can only use 4 GB of the S3 storage, for example. Next, one provider itself exposes a variety of interfaces, including the POSIX interface, which is actually a binary interface that Fuse client uses to mount data as a POSIX accessible local data. We have the HTTP GUI, which is used by users to actually manage his data, because a user logs in to the one zone to manage his own metadata, his login, his email, his providers, and spaces. After logging into the system, the user is redirected to a concrete one provider to manage his data. The one provider also exposes a REST and CDMI interface, which I just talked about, and which allow you to manipulate the data and metadata through the REST and CDMI protocols. And currently, we are preparing the FTP and SFTP access to your data, and also WebDAV access for easy integration with localhost clients that synchronize data. So on the last slide, I mentioned that we introduced a concept of one word, where a zone is a federation level concept, and zones are talking with each other to facilitate data access between the federations. To this end, we use Cademilla DHT protocol, which is known for its use in BitTorrent. And the DHT here stands for distributed hash table. This is a more involved topic, which I'm not a developer of, so I can't tell you much about it. Suffice to say that we are implementing a way in which users' metadata, like his login or what spaces and what providers he is supported by, is accessible to all zones, but only authorized zones. So what's new in OneData 3.0 compared to OneData 2.0, which we already deployed? So the OneData 2.0 was an extension of OneData 1.0. So we took the product that was intended to facilitate unified access to different storage types in a single data center, and we distributed it over multiple data centers. What this caused? Well, we faced many challenges during the development of OneData 2.0, and many problems that were solved inefficiently. So after getting OneData 2.0 to a state where we could release it as a final product, we've decided to re-implement OneData 3.0 from scratch using the knowledge that we gained during the implementation of OneData 2.0. So the internal architecture and design is built from scratch for easy integration in distributed data center scenarios. Our access tokens are now based on macaroons, which allow us for easy, detailed resource level access facilitation and read and write permissions and other types of file permissions. We currently support S3, Ceph, and Swift storages, which weren't present in 2.0. The 2.0 only supported POSIX storages. the OneData 3.0 currently provides CDMI, POSIX, and REST interfaces with more on the way, as shown on the previous slide. We have support for zones. Zones are a new concept for OneData, which facilitate inter-federation access. Our database is now couch-based. Previously, we've used Big Couch, which pretty much sees development for some time as they are merging with CouchDB. Our system is now fully Dockerized, so the live demo that we'll show later will have Docker containers containing our OneData components running on virtual machines. So the system can also easily be spun up on a single computer with multiple Dockers, and you can test this installation on a single machine. We now feature batch configuration and deployment, so the installation can be hands-off if you configure it previously. And we have many tests: unit tests, integration tests, acceptance tests, performance tests, stress tests, which does various things and run at various times. So briefly about OneData scalability and fault tolerance. So the nodes can be added on the fly to one provider installation by using a GUI or a command line administrative interface. There are two types of nodes: manager nodes, which we call cluster manager, and worker nodes. It is very similar to a master-slave scenario where masters, that is managers, monitor worker nodes and load balance between them, and worker nodes perform the tasks given by the tasks that are to do in the system. So all of the tasks are balanced dynamically. We've separated the components of OneData, one provider, the components that I just mentioned, so the worker base and cluster manager base, and made them available on GitHub so that anyone who creates a distributed master-slave based application in Erlang can use our base for easy load balancing and node monitoring. As I mentioned before, when you have inter-data center access, you need to have remote file transfers. So one provider features a remote transfer layer, a subsystem dedicated for transferring files in a parallel manner and utilizing as much of the network links as possible. That a transfer can be started explicitly by a user in GUI or by APIs, the REST API or CDMI API. The transfers can also be started automatically by a policy which says that data has to be replicated on various providers, or when the user accesses remote data, so when the user is logged into provider A and accesses data from provider B, this actually triggers a remote transfer which causes a replication, and also triggers a prefetching event so that when the user continues to read his file, his data will be available to him faster than if he would have to request all of the blocks separately from the other provider. So the transfer is block-based, allowing the remote data access on the fly, allowing pre-staging so that the data is already there on your current provider when you want to use it. Data migration, data replication, which are the use cases I've just covered. OneData also supports CDMI with many but not all capabilities of the standard. The most important parts are operations on basic objects. The basic objects in our use case would be files. Operations on containers, which in our use case would be directories. The CDMI supported capabilities include manipulating metadata of the files and directories, which are strongly coupled with extended attributes. topic for the files. We have options to use access control lists for all the files. The access control lists are based on, you can set up an access control entry per user, per space, per user group. We have big folders. We can move and copy data objects in containers. We have big files, so you can read and write parts of a file. And of course, you can access your files by their IDs in CDMI interface. Now, we'll move on to the live demo, which will be conducted by Krzysztof. So we need a camera here.
Wait a second.
Wait a second.
Not now.
Can we ask some questions in the meantime?
Sure.
So, I was really interested in
Microphone.
Oh.
I guess I should have a microphone too.
Se vuoi te lo lascio? Ah? Lo lascio.
Okay. So I'm sure this is going to come out through the demo, but I just wanted to get maybe other people thinking about it. We speak about the concept of providers, and for me that's kind of like a storage cluster that's dedicated to storage. Okay, so what relationship is there to the actual processing worker nodes of a compute cluster? Are they also part of the provider? Like, how do they fit into?
Well, the work cluster could also be a provider.
Right.
And interface with data stored on other nodes, but fetched by one data.
Okay, so you have like an NFS store which is mounting the local provider.
Yes.
Okay.
Or the work nodes could be separate from one provider and fetch data through POSIX or
Right.
HDMI or REST interface.
Okay, so that the prefetching, all of the staging, all of those benefits happen as well, but I have to build that into the application.
Yeah.
Okay, and I need to have the one data client on the worker node to be able to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome everybody, my name is Krzysztof and I will have a live demo of One Data. Konrad already introduced me, but I will briefly say something about me. I'm a developer at One Data and I'm mainly responsible for deployment and configuration of our components. I also work with storage helpers and Fuse client. So we've prepared a demo environment which consists of 5 virtual machines. Each virtual machine has a public IP address. In 4 of them, there is One Data components deployed. They are in Dockers. So we've got here one zone. We've also got 2 providers running on the 2 other virtual machines. And we've got another virtual machine where we've got one client, both running in Dockers. And those 3 virtual machines have access to a NFS server which is hosted on the 5th virtual machine, so that both one provider and one client has access to the data. Now, enough talking. Let's try to play with One Data and hope it will be a cheerful game. If you happen to have any questions during the live demo, do not hesitate.
If you
yes,
run
yes,
a live
yes.
demo, you need to move the camera
please.
now, right?
Yes, yes. So if you happen to have any
So
questions.
give us a couple of minutes to move
Right,
the
right.
camera.
No problem. we good to go? Yeah? Yes? Okay. So, once again, if you have any questions, do not hesitate, ask them. The more interaction we get, the better we will make one data. So, I will kick off this live demo with logging into our OneZone. Wait a second, I need to mirror my display. Wait a second. Oh, here it is. Right, now I see the same as you. Let's go to OneZone. So this is how it looks like, the page of OneZone. I will log into OneZone using one of OpenID providers. I will choose Dropbox. I will provide my credentials. And now we are in. This is my first login, and we've got a message here that we are supposed to get a provider to support our space. I will go ahead and create 3 spaces. I will name the first one Catania space. Create another one, which will be ENFM space. And the last one, which will be called a common space. Right, we've got 3 spaces, but no support yet. Let's go ahead and get some support.
Before you go on, I just had a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you comment on the possibility to plug this into Identity Federation instead of OpenID Connect, or both?
Actually, currently we support only OpenID. I know that we've also added lately Indigo OpenID, and it's an easy job. Yes, there's no problem with that. And we also added, yeah.
Some is currently in preparation. Some is not available yet.
We've also added lately the possibility to log in via login and password, and it's been added to our system to allow administrators to log in and to manage the data. So, what's going on? I will refresh the page. Oh, right. So here we've got a token. With this token, which I have to, I guess, make it a bit small. Right. We can click here to copy this token. And with this token, we have to pass it to a provider so that he can support our space. As I mentioned before, we've got 2 providers. One of them is named Catania. And here we've got the view of an administrative panel. So here is a page where we can support space. There is already one storage attached to this provider, and it's called NFS, and it's actually an NFS. So here we paste the token, and we specify the amount of our support, let's say 10 gigabytes, and we press OK. Now our Catania space is supported. We'll go ahead and support other spaces. ENFN space will be supported by the other provider. Once again, we are in an administrative panel of ENFN provider. We go to support, paste token, specify, let's say, 100 gigabytes. And we're good to go. And the last space which will be supported by 2 providers. So we get first token, go over here, yes, and another one, oh no, here, okay, and we are in FM. Right. So having that done, we are good to go to log in into our providers. On the map, we've got the view of the location of providers. Yes?
Sorry, I'm trying to follow. Can you just go back to where you requested support?
Yes, to an administrative panel, yeah, here. So you've got 2 options.
So
yeah.
why did you get, I mean, I logged in with my GitHub account, first time.
Yes.
It worked great. And then it said nobody is supporting.
Yes.
Which is fine. What do I do then?
In a different window here, in this tab, in one zone, so that you log in and you don't have any support. You have to click on data space management and choose a space which has been created for you, the first space which has been created for you. For instance, mine is Krzysztof Czepla's space, and here you click support and pass this token to the provider. Okay, so back to what I was saying. We've got 2 providers which are visualized on this, actually their location is visualized on this map. So here is Catania, and here is ENFN. During the registration process, providers can specify the geolocation so that they can be visualized on this map, and that users can easily switch between them and they know where they are going. So I will go to the Catania provider. I click here and been redirected to the provider. Yes, my default space, which has been created for me, is not supported, and I got this message, but I will switch to a Catania space. Yes, there is a question. Oh, sorry, I haven't noticed you.
I want to know if this process has to be done for each user. I mean, every user of one data to request to the administrator of the provider or can be for groups of
yes, I will cover groups in a minute. Yes, you can create a group of users, and then with only one token, which you pass to an administrator, you give access to all the users that are members of this group.
This group will share the same space?
Yes, they will have access to the same space.
So the validation has to be done for space?
Yes, in this case for...
Like in this case, or we will see how to create space for groups, communities?
Yes, I will show that. Right, so we are in Catania provider, and we've got some problems with displaying GUI, so I will make it...
the website is not...
Oh, okay. So we go ahead and upload first file. I've downloaded some images of Sicily, and I will, the first one, I will upload this lovely picture. And it says that it's been uploaded, so we can now download it to desktop. Right, save, and display it. Right. Okay. The same thing we can do with, well, with the other provider. Just by clicking here on providers, we will be redirected back to one zone. We can click here or on the map to go to the other provider. Once again, we will switch this time to an ENFN space and upload a second picture. Now, this was the spaces that were supported by a single provider. Now I will switch to a space which is supported by multiple providers. In this case by 2. So here we are in a common space, and we go ahead and upload other file. Okay, now we've been in ENFN provider. We will go to Catania provider, switch to a common space, and we see that the file is present here, but it hasn't been yet downloaded to this provider. If you would like to access the file from the Catania provider, it should be, it has to be replicated from ENFN provider to Catania provider so that the user can download it. So I will go ahead and click here and download it. And it's over here. Right, and now after this process, close. You will see that the distribution of the file has changed. Now the file has both replica in Catania provider and in ENFN provider. Right. Now I will show you how to share a space between users. So to share a space, you have to navigate to Spaces tab. Yes? Mm-hmm.
For small files, okay, but for big file, has to be synchronous the definition of the file between the provider and if the file was 100 gigabytes.
Yeah.
And you take the download from Catania.
Mm-hmm.
You wait on the browser until it's open, or I can
actually,
schedule some transfer between the provider.
Actually, you will have the progress bar in a GUI, and if you, for instance, quit the browser, it won't stop the process of replication of the file. So you can later on log in, and you should see the replicated file.
And the transfer starts only after my trigger brings that and says the loader will start even if I will not access the from the provider.
The transfer starts the moment you you request to download the file.
Okay, if there is no request, there is no replication.
Currently, because the replication can be policy-based, it's just that the policy-based replication is not there yet.
Actually, Konrad is...
Not there yet on this provider or in one day? What?
In one day.
Okay, so it's some future for the future?
Yes. We've currently implemented manual replication, so automatically through accessing a file and manually through a REST interface or somewhere in the GUI. There's also a button to replicate the file manually.
But for the moment, I cannot use this feature for reliability. I mean, because I have to provide for the moment, provider, then everything.
It's a feature for a very near future.
Okay.
Actually, there is an REST API to replicate the file.
Yes,
and you can also, I will present it, you will get an ID of a transfer, and then you can make a request with this ID to check the status of the transfer, whether it's been completed or not.
Yes, so currently it can be implemented by you easily by listening to the metadata changes that I've briefly covered before. So you can see that a new file has been uploaded here. Then your script can trigger replication through the REST API and check the status of the replication.
Okay, you have to build something that is not complex.
At the moment, yes.
Okay.
You have to put it into the application.
You have to build a sort of application on top of this additional behavior.
At the moment.
I have another question.
Yes.
Can you comment a little bit on how the transfer is made? Like, are you using underlying libraries? Like, I saw one of the dependencies was Globus Toolkit, the BDT.
Mm-hmm.
Are you using that? Are you using CSIFTP? What exactly is the transfer protocol?
Maybe I will redirect this question to Konrad because he's responsible for the transfer on the team.
Currently, the transfer protocol is based on TCP. It is based on multiple parallel.
Sorry, Konrad, do you need the mic?
Oh, so the transfer is currently based on multiple parallel TCP streams from each node. So each node can transfer through 5, 10, however much are needed TCP streams.
You're not using any library, I suppose?
No, we're not using a library for transfer. Globus is hard to integrate into a system, and it requires administrative work. We have a custom solution, and the custom solution is actually focused on reliability and fault tolerance. So the data transfer the speed of data transfer is also an important part, but we haven't wrote a custom application protocol. We're just currently using raw TCP streams for that.
So that's from client to client, or like endpoint to endpoint?
That's between providers.
Okay, so how do you know, how does the other provider know what to listen to? How does the communication get started?
So the communication gets started by one provider. The protocol is request-based. So when a client, for example, wants to fetch a file on provider A that is stored on provider B, provider A issues a transfer request to provider B. And provider B checks with OneZone if the transfer request is valid, if the provider A can issue this request, because he can only do so if he supports certain spaces for certain users. And if
All of that is
yep.
taken care of in the OneZone implementation?
Yeah. The OneZone facilitates the transfer, but the transfer is done peer-to-peer between providers.
So the OneZone is like the manager of
Yeah.
Now I will show you how to invite the user to a space. I will invite user to a common space, but before I do that, I will log in into account of the other user.
Well, actually, just to clarify.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, just to clarify, the whole transfer and the whole management of transfer happens in providers. So the requesting provider is the manager of his own transfer. Distributed because he knows about all of his nodes, but he manages it. The OneZone in this scenario is only used for authentication of providers and authorization of the request.
Now I'm back on OneZone login page, and I will log in as Catania user, which I've created. So we are in OneZone web page. Actually, unfortunately, now we do not support the process of joining a space directly in OneZone. We have to go to a provider GUI. So to do that, I will just support Catania default space to get access to the provider GUI. Support. Okay. And we're back here. Now we can go to the provider GUI. No questions, okay. Right. And back here, we click on the common space, and we request invitation token for the other user. So we click here to invite user to the common space. We get this token. We pass the token to the other user and navigate to the Spaces tab. Click here to join the space, and paste the token. We've got yes, go ahead.
So these two users,
yes.
How do they know each other? I mean, is there any discovery of people?
No, there's no such tool to discover other people's. No, currently we do not allow others to list the users of OneZone. So you have to physically know the other user, and you, for instance, can email him the token you've just created to make him join the space of yours.
I mean, it's very much like Dropbox.
Yes.
Google.
Yes.
So is there any way of consuming identities from an identity store that we know are grouped together, like in a bond or something?
Yes, we are working now on a REST API for administrators, and only administrators will have a privilege to list the OneZone and see all the users that are currently have an account in OneZone.
Okay. Okay. And so I'm thinking about communities trying to kind of coordinate themselves, right?
Right.
So like the community manager would be the administrator.
Yes, yes, and he will only be able to list the users. We actually don't think that the users will have the privilege to get the identity of all the other users. Okay. Just for now, but. Sure. Right. So when we refresh the page, we should see users. And here is Catania user, but when we switch to the common space, we see that we've got two users, me and Catania Hackfest. Now, back to the data tab. Wow. We can switch to common space, and we see we are now logged in as a Catania users, and we have access to the file that's been previously uploaded by me. So we can download it again, and it all works. Right, now there's been a question about the groups. I will present now briefly how to create a group, how to invite users to this group, and with one token, create a space for them so that they can use this space. So we navigate to groups. We click on a create group. I will name it Tanya group. Create. Okay. I've been automatically joined this group, and now I will invite the user. Okay. I go the token. I switch to Catania user, and here in a groups tab, I can press join, paste token, click join, and and the Catania users have successfully joined the Catania group. Now, the group I've created doesn't have any space. There are two options. We can. I will just refresh the page. And we see that both me and Catania user is in the group. There are two options. We can either join an existing space as a group, or we can request space creation, which I will do. We get this token. We go to the administrative panel. Now we click create a space. And now the provider has the opportunity to name the space. Actually, he is creating a space for a group of people. So I will name it Catania group space. And paste token. I will give a terabyte of storage to this group. And now both me and Catania Hackfest user via this group has access to the space, Catania group space. I can now navigate to data tab, change to a Catania group space, and upload the file. For instance, this one. Right. And now, as a Catania user, I made a mistake. I will go to Catania provider, switch to Catania group space, and I can download the file. So this is basically how we manage groups in OneData. There is a concept of nested groups, but I will not cover it in this presentation because I don't want to make it too complex. Right. So actually, this will conclude the first section of a live demo. Now I will present how to use our Fuse client. So Fuse client is a common. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So the group administrator or the creator of the space doesn't have any rights to define the name?
No, no. This time the provider named the space. And all...
For the user is the user?
Once again?
The space is created by the user?
Yes, yes.
The user.
No, no. Group is created by a user. I, as Krzysztof, created a space, a group. Well, I created a group. I invited another user. Yes, and then I've created the token which allowed me to support, to pass it to the provider, which will create a space for this group.
When you create the space as a user,
Yes.
you name the space, or was also the user?
No, this time I've named the space.
So there are different,
Yes, there are different scopes and of the privileges, and actually there are two different things. When we are creating a space as a user, we are giving the name of the space, and we are only requesting the provider to give us the support. Whereas when we create a group, we can add members to this group, but the provider will have to create a space for us, and in this case, he will name the space.
why you have two different approaches?
Oh, that's a good question.
Actually, there has been a use case where we wanted providers. In a use case when a provider is strictly internet-centered, is not connected with any other providers, it's a very local one-data installation. We wanted providers to be able to create the spaces, to manage the spaces. But there are two approaches which are applicable to both groups and users. So a user can give provider a token to create the space, a group can give provider a token to create the space. And also, a user can give provider a token to support a already created space, and a group can give provider a token to support an already created space. It's just that for...
Will you just come closer to the mic?
Ah.
So
it's just that...
Your chair, right?
Sure. It's just that for whatever reason currently, because the GUI is continuously under development, currently we have in the GUI only the use cases where user gives provider a token for support and group gives provider a token for creation, because we felt that these were the most common use cases. But on the part of the actual REST API of the OneZone, both approaches are possible. So it's just a question of adding the creation of specific tokens to the GUI.
Once again, to clarify, here I've mentioned that you've got two options to support a space for a group. You can either request a space creation where the provider gives the name, or you can join an existing space, which is a space you can create as a user, but still you have to get the support for this space. And this time, when you join a space, you've created it, so you've named it. You can join this space as a group, and then support the space just by a token without any name given by a provider. So there are two ways to support a space for a group. Hmm?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Probably missed this answer. You might have said it before. I missed it. Where do users discover which spaces there are? Sorry, which groups there are? Do they discover that on the zone, on the provider, like where? I log into one day, it's like, okay, I'm here now. What can I do? Is there a list of groups that I can
Yes,
join?
there is a list of groups in every provider. So you have to go to any provider, and in his GUI you will get the list of groups you are a member of. Actually, there is no problem to add this feature to OneZone GUI, but currently it's not available there.
Yeah, so what I was thinking was that maybe you have different providers with different named groups, but actually the same group. You know, so there's a redundancy in naming, but the actual file is the same.
Actually, the groups are managed by the OneZone, so they are inter-provider.
So they're uniquely named across providers.
They are not necessarily uniquely named, I think.
But can they be resolved?
They are uniquely identified by an identifier, but they can be named whatever, I think, currently.
Okay. So I mean, I'm just thinking, okay, so a new user comes along and they want to join a group. Do they have to go to every provider provider and say, I want to join this group here?
No, the provider administrator handles handles inviting users into group because it's done in this way. A provider administrator invites a user into his group, and it's done on the one-zone level.
Okay, so it's in the hands of the administrator.
Or administrators. There's not necessarily a single one. We have privileges for groups, so you can design multiple members to be able to invite users into a group, but not manage the group in any other way, for instance.
And so are you thinking about having some kind of, you expose the list of groups, you can request to join a group and then there's just an approval process?
We are thinking about that, yes.
Because it sounds like a lot of work on the admin's point, on the admin's part. You know, we've got to manage all of the requests of all of the various users, make sure they're in the right place, you know.
Sure.
It's, I think the user probably has a better idea of which group they're supposed to join sometimes, you know. You're like, I'm sure I want this group, and then you say, okay, you're a real user, so it's a group.
In the works.
In case you can specify the policy, who has to specify the group owner, the group administrator, or the provider administrator creating the space for the group?
Currently, only a group owner can specify the ACL for each user. Actually, we don't have a GUI now for this, but there is an API for that, and you can specify the privileges on the ACL level for different users inside the group.
And this, okay, the provider will support the ACL specified values. I mean, if then with ACL, can you say this user can only read the file, the other user can write to read or something like that?
Yeah.
And this is made on one zone, and then one provider will support this.
Yes, the data about this is kept in one zone. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Why you have all these token cut and paste? Why you need all these token cut and paste? Because all the users are in one zone, all the provider are in one zone. You have all the user.
Yes, but the
why you have not just internal notifications?
But the provider is the one who can give you his resources. So you have to somehow communicate with the provider. So you have to go to to the provider administrator and via his web panel of or command line tool support this space. So, yeah.
When we create a space on that provider, why the administrator of the provider just have his panel? We say, okay, the members of this guy accept
So this is actually the thing we are saving from the future, where the creation of a space on a specific provider would not be done in one zone, but would be done through a GUI exposed by this concrete provider. So you would go to provider directly, say, I want to create a space on your files, and maybe you already have permissions to do it, maybe you have to be approved, but this is a process that is in the works, but not there yet.
Okay.
Currently, we have the cut and paste.
So if there are no other questions, I will move on to present how the Fuse client works. So what I will do, I will SSH on a client machine and ENFN. Okay. I will go into the demo directory, and now I've prepared some scripts which will make the process easier. Actually, I will start one client inside a Docker container, which will mount a Fuse inside the Docker in a mnt/one client directory. But to do that, I have to get a token to mount the client. So I navigate to, I press here on a tokens tab. I'm redirected back to one zone, and here I can create a token. I copy the token.
So this token cut and paste is actually done because it's hard to get a token from the command line because of all the OpenID stuff.
So now is what's going on. I'm starting a Docker container, which will mount one client inside.
Sorry, I have a totally unrelated question to one data. It's about fuse in Docker.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can help me. I could never get, I'm running the Docker engine on Ubuntu here with kernel, I forget.
Mm-hmm.
Fairly recent kernel. And I could never get my container to mount a fuse file system. Like, what magic tricks did you have to play?
Oh, well, the basic magic trick is adding a privileged flag to start a Docker. Try that. Can help you.
There's still a problem with that we cache a token inside a file.
It has nothing to do with your question.
Container. So so that you don't need to paste every time the token when you log in. So probably the problem was that you've created
I was mounting a different fuse file system.
It's not what kind.
Okay.
Yeah, the basic approach is add privileged. The more detailed approach is add mounting capabilities, and it should work. Sorry.
Okay, no, I'm not crazy then.
Now I will mount a second client. So the first one is connected to the Catania provider, and the other one will be connected to ENFN provider. To do that, I have to get another token. Okay. And you also see that during the process of mounting one client, we fetch some configuration needed for him to properly start. Yep. I specified, actually in the script it's specified to which the client, in the script, this wrapper.
Could you use the same token for both concerning or?
Yes.
Okay. Because there is no specification. It's the same. Is there a new token with the same kind of information?
Not currently, because the token can be bound to provider because it's a macaron, so caveats can be added, but another feature for the future.
Okay, because for the moment there is no specification.
For the moment, you can use the token only with any provider.
Okay.
As in, you can bind the token to a specific provider, but it is technically possible.
Okay.
So I've logged into this machine, and as I mentioned, this is a single VM, but running two clients in two containers. So we've got this one. I will exec into the container. I will go into, so docker exec -it. I will specify which one. So it will be Catania, and I want to exec there a bash. So now I can navigate to mnt/one client. This is the directory where the client has been mounted, and list the spaces that are present in my that are available to me, and I will do the same on the. I will attach to the other client. Right. So, and also I can list the spaces. So what I'm going now to do is I will create a file and append to this file alternately using the first client and then switch to the next client, and I will append to this file so that we can see the distribution of blocks, of file blocks in this file. So I will go ahead and echo Catania 1 into let's say common file.txt. I forgot to go into a common space.
So the main space is a virtual directory that only shows you your spaces. You can't write there.
And again, okay, we can. Alas, we've got the Sicily picture I've uploaded previously, and the file has been created here. Now I can list the directory on the other client, and we see that the metadata about this file has been replicated to the provider ENFN. Now I will append a line of text to this file in the other client. Currently, the file is only on Catania provider. So in ENFN provider, I've got only metadata about it.
You have the file, but it's empty because it's not transparent.
Yes, yes. There is a hole. Yes, there is a hole.
As you would want to read it, it would be replicated.
Yes.
Yes, when you access the file, it's replicated.
Yes, yes. So I will append a line to a file, and we can start the file. It's now 17 bytes, and here it's also. So the metadata has been replicated. I will repeat the process so that we've got a nice, let's say, chessboard of the blocks between providers and the blocks distribution. Echo, but this time I want to append. Right? We can wait for the replication of metadata. Now it's 27. We can append another line. Right? Again, check whether the metadata has been replicated. Not yet. No, it's replicated now. The previous attempt I've made, it was still 27. But the next time I did the command, the metadata has been replicated. Now I will append the last line here in Catania client. Go ahead here, make sure that the size is correct, and append last line. The reason why I'm checking the size and waiting for the metadata replication is that we are working on the same file simultaneously. So without locks, the file will be for sure corrupted. So I have to wait so that I'm sure that all the metadata and the data in this provider is written to disk. Now,
just on that issue of locks, there's no mechanism
not yet.
to deal with the locks.
No.
Okay, so if I'm writing a file, I need to lock the file.
Yes, yes. Currently, you have to log it so that it won't be corrupted if another user is using it.
So I mean, a typical way to do this is you create an empty block file. Does that also get replicated to the remote site?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm working on the same data set as read write, I can see like don't touch this one, it's been written somewhere else.
Yes. Yes.
And the trouble is that you have to wait for the log files to be replicated as well.
Yeah, I mean that should be almost instantaneous, right?
Now I will switch back to GUI so that we can see the replication of the file. I will go into common space. We've got the file, common file. Click on the file distribution, and we've got this chessboard I've mentioned, chessboard of blocks. What I'm going to do now is to read the file on one of the providers. So in Catania, I will cut the common file. And now you see that it stopped for a while. It was the process of replication the data from the ENFN provider. And now we see that we've got the lines we've written to the file in a proper order.
That
oh, wow.
Sorry, it only stopped once because the first stop was for the first request, and then although it would then reach another block for the local provider and then reach another block from the remote provider, the rest of the blocks were prefetched. So we weren't waiting for the request again.
Right.
Correct.
How much time do you have? Because in order not to queue too much at the lunch,
yes,
it would be better to go there in 10-15 minutes.
Yeah, we're finishing up the second section.
Yes, we will finish the second section,
so
and
when we finish, we stop and we close. Okay, go
right.
ahead.
So now when we click on the file and check its distribution, we see that in Catania there are all blocks, and in ENFN we are still missing some of them. So we can go there and cut it. Once again, we are waiting a bit to get the data from Catania, because we are in ENFN. And when we go to GUI and refresh the page to make sure that everything has been updated, we can see that the file is totally replicated between providers. So they have the whole file. And now if we proceed appending to the file, we can see, wait a second, I guess it's okay, and write another line here. We can switch back to our GUI, and we'll see that new blocks have been appended to the file, and that's basically how the Fuse client works. So if you would like to have a lunch, we can stop here, and after the lunch, I will present our REST API and CDMI APIs.
All the information about the blocks are managed by the individual providers. Each provider has information about the block.
Yes.
So what happens if you lose a provider? You lose all the blocks.
If he had the data, yeah.
Yes, you lose it.
It's a matter of the policy verification.
Sure. Okay, so that makes sense. What about network fault tolerance? If the provider goes offline temporarily, is there some way of rediscovering that it's back and putting a password?
Well, when the provider goes back again, it will function as previously when it comes to that verification. It will just go back in the system.
Okay. Yeah, so if I go there and the file is not up to date, try to access the file or replication.
Actually, the metadata replication is based on the sequence number which is provided by a Couchbase database. So we can, when the provider comes back, can ask for all the changes that has been done while he was offline.
Okay. So what about like a unique, a global namespace of files? So you talked about the virtual top-level directory, right? And then under that you've got the provider subdirectories. Is there a way for a user to have a global top-level directory where the zone or the zone will decide where to write the file?
Actually, this was a use case that we just deleted. We had a concept of default space where you mounted the space, you had one of the spaces at the top level directory. We've decided that it causes a lot of trouble. It causes too much of a complication. Instead, what we've decided on is to allow mounting from the one client point of view, to mount a specific space so that it is the top level directory.
Okay, but if you lose that, then you lost it.
Well,
I mean, I'm thinking about some kind of like round robin algorithm or like a default. In that case, you've got a default space where you say provider, so you write there and all the files will go there. But in terms of like load balancing the various providers, if I keep using one site with one provider, I'm going to fill up that.
Well, there's no reason you would use one space with only one provider. I mean, there are reasons, but it's not necessary to use a space like our common space, which is supported by two providers. And then it's again a matter of policy. Where do you write your actual data? The client currently you have to specify which provider do you connect to with the client.
Right.
But the use case that we're preparing and that was partially implemented already is that the one zone redirects you to a specific provider. So you don't specify which provider you connect to, you just connect to one data system.
Yeah.
And you get one of the providers.
Okay, so is that implemented or is it coming?
It was implemented into code.
Right, okay.
It is a new feature for Real.
Okay. Great.
When you have a space supported by two different providers, they have to provide the same amount of resources. I mean, so one can provide 1 terabyte of data and one 10 gigabytes. In this case, what's happened when you reach the limit of the smallest one?
Actually, quota is treated on a global level. So I'm pretty sure that currently quota is treated on a global level.
But
so
you find the provider?
Yes, the provider assign a specific amount of space, but for this space there is a total of the support of all providers. So so it looks like that you can write a file which is bigger than the quota in this specific provider. Because as a total, the space has, for instance, as you mentioned, 10 gigs in one provider and 100 gigs in the other. So as a total, it has 110 gigs of support. And when you write, for instance, 20 gigabyte file in the first provider, which has 10 gigs of, which gave support of 10 gigs of space, it will be written there. Unfortunately, currently, I guess it's implemented this way. So
so you write only on the provider providing enough space to write the file.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In this case, when you access from the other provider, the one with lower space, the file is not replicated, but download every time.
It will be replicated and then deleted.
Okay, so you go over the code?
Yes, yeah, yes.
Currently, it's possible.
It's possible to go
No,
over.
if it's possible, because if there are resources to do this.
So the operation will fail.
Okay.
So currently it works like this.
For the moment.
Can you specify which file has to be on each provider? Or, I mean, if I go to the provider with the lower space and I try to upload the file,
yes.
It go directly to the other provider or
No,
it's
it will go to the provider to which you connect. So if you don't have enough space there, the operation will fail.
I have to go manually to the provider's loss, and the file will not be replicated.
You have to upload the file to the provider which has enough space to get this file.
At the moment. Okay, I get from that provider if the other has not enough space to replicate.
Yes.
Okay, but I think this is also for the future.
Yes, we have to work on that. We are still in beta, so there are many things we have to deal with, and we will improve one data for sure. So,
any other questions before the lunch?
thank you very much, and see you after.
Any other questions?
Whoa, another question. I've got a question from Cape Town, actually. So, I don't know if Timothy followed everything, but he's one of our site administrators at the site in Cape Town. And they've got a completely hybrid site with cloud everything. His question is it a good idea to set up one data providers with a protocol such as Anycast based on geolocation? So that's, I don't know, probably means like the zone can discover the closest provider based on geolocation. Can you comment on that?
It's a feature we can think of. Currently we use geolocation only to visualize the location of the provider on the map so that the user see easily where he goes. And it doesn't take into account when you are uploading.
Could be a good idea, but probably a better idea would be to base it at least on the latency of the provider.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably meaning like a mobile client. Log in, try to upload
provider.
You gotta find out where you are.
A feature that we can envision right now, but obviously the idea is to give a client not a specific provider to log in, but a list of providers that will be then probed by something like a ping, just to determine the fastest one for us.
Yeah, okay, that's exactly what he's saying. So you're trying to find out which is the best provider to write to. But I think we've chatted about that before. We've got the default one. And then
yeah, correct.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so You are done, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much, guys. So now we break for lunch. It's 1:22, so we reconvene 2:30 in 1 hour 8 minutes. Okay, 1 hour. So lunch is the same procedure of yesterday. You come with me. We go to the canteen and you sign under your name, and you can get your lunch. For those who were not here yesterday, yeah. Let's meet in a couple of minutes downstairs. Before the end.
It's almost the end. It's not there is a possibility. I'm really interested in Earth Day.
Bruce, tu resti qua o? Ok, so, quindi possiamo lasciare tutto. So lunch? So same place?
One person is
again, there is somebody now listed.
okay.
Okay.
And it worries me a little bit, but it's also very easy.
So far so good? Ok, è partito come negli ultimi 10 anni l'Etna si è livellata. Prima c'era la punta, ora non ce n'è quasi più. Pazzesco. Potete spegnere i microfoni così? Resta Bruce, quindi... No, resta Bruce, quindi la aula sarà aperta, ma possiamo lasciare...
Ma io con Bruce le interviste quando le faccio allora? E Bruce resta qui quando le faccio.
Perché non le faremo adesso, oppure torno un po' prima? Ma sono le 3, Bruce è qua tutto il tempo, ma non è che per forza... Bruce è il più intervistabile di tutti.
No, Bruce deve fare interviste con me fuori.
Vabbè, alle 3. Ma la prima intervista è alle 3. Ah, oppure ti vuoi portare la camera adesso e farla fuori?
Io lo volevo fare a dire.
Allora portatevi le camere.
Dentro fuori però.
E allora portatevi le camere e accappa la gente.
Ma mi serve
Bruce non viene? Niente. Domani più tardi qua, o più tardi fuori.
ora lo organizziamo per fatto l'intervista perché se no non lo...
Parla con Bruce. Se andiamo via tutti io faccio chiudere la stanza.
Io non mi posso allontanare, ho tutta l'apparecchiatura di qua, non è che mi grave.
Certo.
Devo capire come muovermi.
Ciao Carla, grazie tante, ci sentiamo. Bene. Assolutamente, assolutamente. Ciao.
Devo capire quando.
Il problema è che se tu le vuoi fare fuori lui deve venire. Se deve venire qua dobbiamo chiudere, deve restare qualcun altro. Perché...
E qualcuno allora rientro, io vengo, prendo Bruce.
Però alle 2:30 la gente starà qua per ricominciare, questo è il problema.
Sì, lo so, devo capire possiamo perché
allora,
sembra che la gente sia tutta qua.
No, allora, Marti, il problema fondamentale è oggi farle qua fuori, in qualche stanza, dall'altro lato, nell'altro terrazzo. Ok? E le fai ad Evelyn e a chi c'è. Domani è l'ultimo giorno, giovedì, allora domani dobbiamo fare gli europei e quelli che se ne vanno. Tu hai e li acchiappiamo. No, domani ci sono gli use case. Li prendiamo oppure li facciamo tra domani e giovedì.